Good morning. Just let me make this a bit bigger. Good morning, and it's my pleasure to give what's termed on the program is opening remarks. After many years of working at the DSI, almost 16 years, you tend to start reading agendas in different ways. So there's welcoming remarks and opening remarks and keynote addresses. And I'm glad now when I'm not asked to give keynote addresses, because we tend to say the same old things, and I look forward to the keynote presentation later. So my role, as I understand it, with the opening remarks, and thanks to Dr. Sitoli and others for sending me notes, but I told him I'm not going to cover some of those points. I'll leave it up to him to do into the welcome remark. But to open this conference, what I would want to do is just to contextualize the importance of this in the broader context of where we're going to in South Africa with regard to its development, our continental ambitions, etc. Very briefly, I'm not going to take time, but I'll be remiss of not acknowledging a few people before I make those comments. So the CSR Group Executive, Dr. Malinga, and other members of the leadership team who are here, I'm not too sure. The leadership of the NICIS broadly and the CHPC in particular. Professor Iwa Delman, I hope I'm saying that correct, from the University of California. Dr. Jean-Laurent Phillips from Intel, and look forward to the keynote. Ms. Trish Dem-Kruger from Hewlett-Packard. Professor Suna van Soms, University of Johannesburg, and everyone else who have come to this conference. You're most welcome, and I hope you have an interesting few days. But I also want to acknowledge some other players. I mean, this is the 16th CHPC conference. And I remember the early days when funding for some things like the SANRAN and the CHPC came through just taking advantage at the time of opportunities. We went to Treasury, got the funding support, etc. And we're thankful to have a leadership team, both in our entities at the CSR and at the DSI, who've managed to take this in a patient, painstaking way to create what we have today, which is what I believe a very strong legacy, and that's what I want to highlight in the context of the content. So I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Sitoli and his leadership team, and then within the DSI, Dr. Deli Adams, Charles Mokonoto, some of you would know this, and others who have gotten us to this stage. So as I indicated, I want to just sketch out a few high-level context issues, because the CHPC is very interesting. Even in the design of the agenda, I look at things like the theme and the history and what is covered. One of the things I did pick up in the notes is this balance between looking at technical frontiers and how do you grow that, and then also looking at application. And so there's amazing work that's being done applying some of the capabilities we have in areas like climate change and health, etc. But also importantly, the kind of huge opportunities that have been created in the program for getting the next generation of innovators, technologies, and researchers coming through. So to all of the people who will be participating in the student challenges and the hackathon, I've kind of lost touch with these different brandings, the student cluster competition, and there's something else around this. I think that's an important part of this agenda. So when looking at this theme, and part of this idea of democratizing cyber infrastructure, and go to many other conferences where we look at the role of innovation and technology in science, technology and innovation policy circles, both locally, and we've taken on this on board in a significant way in our white paper for science, technology and innovation, and even in some of the documents that were referenced at the continental level. This issue of directionality comes about very importantly, because with the capabilities that we have in different spaces, technical challenges are guided by what is it that you're wanting to achieve. at the end of the day. And so this concept of having strong directionality in our research agenda is crucial for us. And part of that directionality argument in the South African context is that we have deep development challenges, but we have huge opportunities. And when I'm looking at South Africa, some of this extends into our role in the continent. We have huge challenges, both on the side of core development challenges, whether it's health, education, climate change, rate of change, but we have huge opportunities, the youth bulge, and the fact that we have, I think, increasingly the adoption at a higher level of the importance of science, technology, and innovation. So taking those two things into account, having a conference that really looks at this issue of how we take this technology, which can have, can exclude people, and look at how you include, you democratize, you use it in a way that's positive, and very importantly, in relation to the sustainable development challenges. So there will be talks here in detail around those things. But the point I want to reinforce is that in future, as we look at the investments that the DSI makes, the partnerships that we set up, there's a greater focus on impact. Now, some of the impact areas that I want to highlight, because I see some of this here, but just to kind of reinforce, particularly in the context of what we call the decadal plan for science, technology, and innovation. Two big challenges that have been identified, where we have opportunities to leapfrog, and where I think cyber infrastructure has a role to play, is in the space of energy and climate change. In energy, we have over time, we've invested not as we've done with CHPC, we also invested significantly in things like the hydrogen economy, fuel cells, etc., renewable energy technologies. And some of those are now at the cusp of being taken forward. And it requires a different type of support from the cyber infrastructure. So those are two big challenges. Clearly, health is the one that was brought more strongly to the fore as a result of COVID, but it ranges across. It's not only communicable diseases, it's non-communicable diseases. It's also health and well-being. So it's not necessarily getting to a situation where people are sick and then trying to deal with it. And very importantly, the issues of mental health. Yeah? So from a context perspective, the decadal plan has identified these two areas as big areas that we need to focus on. The second set of priorities are what we call societal grand challenges. And we're busy scoping this, but the three areas that have been identified is environmental sustainability and dealing with climate change. The second is the future of work and education, in particular. New ways of delivering education. How is it that we can accelerate what it is? I mean, it's common knowledge that we face a deep crisis in our education sector. Just the pace of change, leaving people behind. So can science and technology be mobilized more effectively to address this? And then the third area is we are changing, and we need to be asking some very, very important questions that has a very strong social science focus around the future of a South African society. How do we see ourselves in the future? And how do we deal with these challenges that we have, both technological and non-technological? Are we facing, due to the technology, facing what other countries have faced, where there's clear divides in many parts of the world, the US, the UK, pro-Brexit or for Brexit. And the technology reinforces that, because you go into echo chambers and you hear things. So what does this mean for us? And can we imagine a future that is different, that is aligned to the national development plans of being one that's inclusive, one that is democratic, where there's well-being, etc. So that's the second set of challenges that we've identified. And again, I think there will be conversations over the next year about how is it that we mobilize different capabilities that we have set in the system in that direction. So clearly, the Nikki's set of capabilities have been effectively used in the case of climate change. But what else is there to do? And then the third area that is going to come up a lot more sharper is industrial development. South Africa is deindustrializing much more earlier on. The researchers tell you about premature industrialization. We have a service sector that is larger than our manufacturing sector. We still have agriculture that large numbers of people are employed. But the question that has come up clearly is we don't think that we've mobilized the power of science, technology, and innovation as effectively as you could at a country level, not at the government level, in support of mining, manufacturing, and agriculture in particular. So that's the kind of third focus area. And this is why I'm glad when the statistics were shared with me by the number of industrial players that have come through. Some of these capabilities can enable that kind of leapfrogging and modernization of the sector. So we're looking at those sectors, but we're also continuing to support some of the what we call growth areas. And the two big growth areas is the digital economy. And I think there's a lot that we still need to unpack in a much more deliberate way. I think a lot of things have been happening, good things from the ground, but we need to be able to do this in a much more effective way. So we call this the new sources of growth. And the second one is the circular economy. So to summarize, we have those societal grand challenges, the priorities of energy and health, a big new focus on modernizing of sectors, and then we have these new sources of growth. So over time, what's going to happen is we're hoping that we would be able to interact a lot more effectively with all role players in the system, whether it's the universities and other government departments, etc., to focus our energies, because we are a small system. Welcome. I assume these are the Tuto Tembisa School. I'll leave you to introduce them now that they're here. So let me conclude by saying that all of this will not be possible with the words that have come about. And I think we all committed to this. We just need to find ways of doing this more effectively. And I think the CHPC and the related initiatives of Teresa, etc., have really given us practical and firm guidelines on how to do this. We always talk about inclusion, about partnerships, about coordination. These are easy words to say, but they're difficult to do in reality. And I think we've made successes in this space, and we need to take this in other places. On the coordination one in particular, there's a move to have at a high level, at the country level, a much more coordinated program between the private sector and government and other players in support of commonly identified areas. And so hopefully next year, we'll be having the first ever in this democratic era presidential plenary on science, technology, and innovation. And we're hoping that some of the players that have been very loyal in supporting the CHPC over time, the multinationals in the ICT space, will attend it and help us shape a common agenda for sustainability, inclusion, and democratization. So on that, I have the honor of now declaring this conference open, and the real business starts. What I've done is pre-starter starters. So look forward to the keynote and other presentations. Thank you.